Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to work on a Shimano Sedona. I'm going to show you how to replace the main gear and the shaft. There's some binding going on in this reel, and we've worked on it previously. The customer just wanted to make absolutely certain that it could be restored as best as possible. And when we had this apart, we noticed that there was wear on the main gear and that the shaft was probably bent because it's not moving up and down through the pinion gear easily. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. It's a relatively easy process, and it starts by taking off the spool to give us access to the shaft and removing the toothed gear that alerts us to the anti-reverse being in play, and that is held on by a series of 2 washers. So those both come off. They usually can be pulled off with some hand strength. If you need to, you can use additional leverage. That frees this spool shaft. Now we'll go down to the bottom of this reel. We're going to open this reel up by taking the handle off, and then this has got a through plated reel, so the rotor needs to be removed in order to get the assembly off of the gear side plate. So we'll come up top, we'll remove the set screw that holds the rotor nut in place. That's a Phillips head screw. And if you notice, I'm putting all my pieces and parts into a parts tray. That way I can find them easily when I go to reinstall the reel. So we have to remove the nut that's holding the rotor on. This is a traditional righty-tighty, lefty-loosey configuration on this nut. You can usually just break the nut, and then you can work easily to do the rest by hand. Okay, we're going to take that off. We're going to pull the handle out, put that in the parts tray, and then that gives us access then to the side plate screws. So there's one little screw that's hiding up here that holds the bump cap on. Go ahead and see if we can grab it with this. We may need the micro drivers for that. That appears to be the case. So we'll remove that. If you didn't know that one was there, you would have a tendency to want to pry this off, and if you pry it off, you could break the clips that hold that bump guard in. So make certain as you're doing these types of repairs to check if anything is binding or doesn't come off easily. Chances are that there's a hidden piece or part. So if you went to pry this, it would be easy to break this holder off. And if that's the case, then you'd have to go order a new one in order to bring that one around. Okay, so we're going to take this off now. It's 3 side plate screws. I'm going to lay them on the desk first. The reason I do that is sometimes manufacturers have different screws sizes in the side plate for whatever reason. I just want to make sure that all of these are the same. Just that's experience talking. And if you notice that there's one that's different, remember where that different piece came from. And that way when you go to reinstall, that'll work. In this case, all 3 of those side plate screws are the same, so they go in my parts bucket. Then we can lift the side plate off. And this is the gear I'm going to replace. We noticed that that one was pretty torn up there, so we want to just go ahead, take that out, and we're going to replace the shaft. So we want to spin the shaft down so we have access to the set screw that holds it into the crosswind block. Take that out. And again, fairly uncomplicated, but you're getting to see the guts of this reel. And this is where it sticks. So the thought being here that there was something going on the bottom where this got bent. Pulling out the main gear. And I don't have good leverage here, so I'm going to use the button for the there you go. And then I'll pull that button off again. Alright, so when we saw this the last time, it's a nice reel, but in this case the shaft seems bent, so we're going to go ahead and replace the shaft. I'm going to replace the main gear. Now on this main gear, we want to get those bearings off. And we should be able to just pop those bearings off with this screwdriver. And that may be one of the problems with this rough performance here. It looks like maybe some corrosion got in here on the main gear and caused these to become problematic in the performance. So just a little bit of leverage, and I'm not really being too careful with this because I don't care too much about the main gear since I have the replacement. But my guess is that that's pulling down the performance on this, and when we put the bearings back on the new main gear, we'll be just fine. So here we go. Okay, so we can see that there's a lot of corrosion, and I suspect that's probably one of the causes for that being problems. All right, we're going to take the main gear. We're going to go reassemble. To do that, I'm going to grab some blue grease. I'm going to make sure we get a nice coating on the shaft. And since this is new, we're going to make sure we get the grease on the teeth of the gear all around. Make sure that the teeth on this side get a good dose of the blue grease. And the blue grease I'm using is a Penn Reels blue grease. It's 4 fishing reels. It's a universal grease, so it'll work on any fishing reel. And it doesn't have to be Penn or a manufacturer's, but make sure whatever grease you're using, that the grease that you are using is designed for fishing reels. I've seen too many examples where the grease that has been used has been automotive or something else, and it's caused problems later on. Okay, these, yeah, you can tell they just slip right on. So there were some issues with the shaft on the main gears, and there's some issues on the main spool shaft as well. So just going to go reset that bearing in the side case here. Press that in. Reset the main gear. Threading that into the bearing. And now we can go ahead and put the new spool shaft in. And the set screw. Now some folks like to use Loctite or some other bonding agent on screws. I don't like to do that because typically it makes it a problem when you try to take them out. And I'm all for problem avoidance. Okay, that's the bottom of the reel. We can go ahead and put the side plate back on. Remember that we had the 3 equal screws there, so it doesn't matter which one goes in which of the holes there. And folks ask me a lot of times, what about using mechanical screwdrivers for these? They notice that I work with a manual. I prefer the manual. I think that the mechanical screwdrivers are okay for taking screws out, but they have high torque. And on the way in, I've seen cases bind, I've seen cases split from over tightening, and it's just one of those things I prefer not to subject to the risk involved with it. So if you have problems tightening these things by hand, I would say go ahead and do that, understanding that maybe you should back off the last part of this, just so that you don't over tighten it. Maybe finish the last turn or 2 by hand. Okay, that's the setup for this. We remember we had a long, narrow screw for the one that comes through the handle here. We'll go put that back in. And I had that with my little mini screwdriver there. Now, if you take pictures along the way, you kind of make mental notes of where the pieces and parts belong if you get lost. So I recommend, if you don't work on reels a lot, if you're not familiar with the reels, go ahead and do that. Go ahead and take the pictures. Cell phone camera, digital camera, any of those work great. And In this case, I'm relying on my memory, but I also am taking pictures. If in some event something went badly, I do have the video running here. I can go back and check. And as trivial as that seems, I have to be honest with you and tell you I've done that from time to time. When I've looked and something just didn't seem right, sure enough I go back to the video and realize I skipped a step, or maybe I inverted a piece or a part or something. So there's no shame in taking videos to just to help reinforce your memory and help you make it an easier task to reassemble. Okay, we're in good shape with that. Just going to grab the set screw for that now. So this is a 40 size reel. It's a general purpose reel. It's good for rivers, bays, light ocean fishing. This one happens to have braid on it, so it's braid ready. And Shimano, as a general statement, seems to have a great reputation for the reels that they build. I've had a lot of them in my shop, and I can't say that most of the time it's for anything other than just the general maintenance or service. Not sure why this one had the corrosive main gear and also had the bent shaft, but it did, and the parts were readily available. So those of you that are working on Shimano reels, most of the time you can find the parts available from e-replacement parts or from Mike's Reel Repair up in Canada. Those are two readily available sources. And Shimano also stocks parts for their reels, but they seem to be the more current reels. This one's probably got a little bit of age on it, so it seems like they jobbed those out. So just trying to line this up. There we go. Moving the handle. Just the handle screw needs to be set in, and we'll be back. So what I did was I found that the reel was performing poorly. Narrowed the problems down to the main gear and the bent shaft. Ordered them up new, and boy, there you go. That's the way it should be running now. So it's free of that extra little tension on it that was causing it to slack a little bit. So ready to go again. So that one was not an expensive repair. I think the shaft may have been $3 or $4. The main gear about the same. With the shipping, I want to say total in US dollars was about $13 to get those replacement parts from e-replacement parts. We've taken care of the issue, and this one's ready to go fishing for a long time to go. So if you have that problem, don't be afraid to look at the possibility of repairing them by getting some replacement parts and taking that project on by yourself. So hope that's helped. If you've enjoyed the video, please like it. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to my channel. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for viewing the video.